Welcome to the virtual volunteer orientation for Read and Write Kalamazoo, also known as RAWK. My name is Kai Harris, and I will be conducting today's orientation session. I am also the volunteer coordinator for RAWK, so I will be your volunteer contact moving forward. Today we are intending to do our volunteer orientation, which is usually held on site, completely virtually. With COVID, we are trying to keep people safe and conduct as many things virtually as we can. Hopefully this orientation will still be very useful to you as I intend to walk you through who we are at RAWK and how you can get involved with us as a volunteer. So to get started, I am going to share my screen, and we are going to be looking at just a PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared to go over some of the basics. As I mentioned, this is the virtual volunteer orientation for Read and Write Kalamazoo, also known as RAWK. Our goals for the session today is I'm going to introduce RAWK. I recognize that some people might already be familiar with RAWK in the community, and some people might be completely brand new to RAWK and the work that we do. So we'll talk a bit about that. I'll share some of our best practices for our volunteers when they're working with youth. I will share some of our current volunteer opportunities as well as upcoming volunteer opportunities. And we will go through the volunteer guidebook together. Now, the email that I sent to you that included this video also included a PDF of our volunteer guidebook. If you don't already have that out, I ask that you get that ready and available because as I go through it, you can follow along. Also, I might move quickly through certain parts, so you can also peruse that guidebook on your own time later as well. Let's start with who we are. So Read and Write Kalamazoo was founded in 2012. We have two founders, Ann Hensley and Emily Kastner. And they came up with the idea for RAWK after one of their friends' kids said to them, I wish there was a summer writing camp in Kalamazoo. And they said, there should absolutely be a summer writing camp in Kalamazoo. So that's how the idea was born, and it's grown exponentially from there. So what started out as a camp that at that time welcomed 16 campers, now we've welcomed 500 plus campers to RAWK. And we've gone from a pay what you can model to a completely free model. Yes, that's right. All of our programming at RAWK is completely free for our youth and families because we are trying to make sure there are no barriers to access when it comes to the programming that we offer. So that's a bit about how we got started. You'll see the picture on the left there. That is our storefront. That's our location on West Edge. And you'll see it's called the Geological and Musicological Survey Company. And we are actually modeled after an organization called 826. And that's where we got the idea for having that sort of storefront. So the storefront is intended to get people in the door. It's a very whimsical space. We do sell items up there, RAWK merchandise. We sell, kind of like whimsy, things, crystals, and we also sell work of our student writers there in the storefront. So you're able to purchase anthologies there as well. So people come in and they're like, hey, what is this place? What are you guys doing in here? And that gives us an opportunity to talk about RAWK and the work that we do. So that's our storefront. The picture on the right just shows a group of our youth just after they had finished working on, I believe that's a picture from a field trip. So those are just some of the youth that we work with in the community. But yeah, basically at RAWK, we are working with youth. We're doing creative writing projects. We are using literacy and writing and creativity to provide equitable access to youth in Kalamazoo. So to give a greater idea of what we do, I'm actually going to share my screen differently because I want to make sure that you all are still able to see this. So now we are looking at the Read and Write Kalamazoo website. You can access this page that I'm on by going to readandwritekzu.org/whatwedo. Also, while you're there, you can definitely feel free to peruse our website. There's lots of great information on there about our programs, the work that we do. There are pictures of our youth and all kinds of great things. So our programs are listed here. The RAWK Readers Room is our in-school programming. We work in the school building, currently at Lincoln School, with youth and their teachers to do some one-on-one and small group work during the school day. So we have an actual space in Lincoln called the RAWK Readers Room. Teachers can bring their students there and we can work on all kinds of different projects based on what that teacher or those students are working on or interested in. This fall, we are actually also expanding this program to include Northeastern schools. So we're very excited about that. So we'll have RAWK Readers Room in 2 Kalamazoo schools this year coming up. It's a very small group project-based learning experience that's very beneficial for our youth. We also have an after-school tutoring program. This program is conducted at Lincoln School as well, and also on site at RAWK for students who attend El Sol. And so the students from El Sol, RAWK is actually right down the street from El Sol. So we go down and we pick them up and walk them down to RAWK, and they can come and work on their homework if they want to, but they don't have to. They can also work on writing assignments. They can do some creative writing. We have a library. They can read books. So it's just a time to be in a safe space, have some positive interaction with mentors and other students, and honestly just, you know, I guess shake off some of the school day and the rigor of the school day and just have a space to just create and exist. So that's our after school tutoring program. We also have field trips. Our field trips are a very cool experience where we take a class through the writing process. So they work on writing as a class, a book together from start to finish. So we put them in separate groups, and each group is responsible for coming up with a different part of that book. You know, maybe one group's thinking about who's going to be the protagonist, and the other group's thinking about the antagonist, and the other group's thinking about the protagonist's sidekicks. And, you know, we do this all the way through the process, from thinking about characters to setting to plot. And all of this is happening in real time. So as they're coming up with ideas, one of us is typing everything on a projected screen that the students can see. So they get to see what it takes to write a book from start to finish. And then we leave a little space at the end of that book for each student to create their own ending. And we publish those books. We give them a physical copy of the book in their hands in their school classroom the next day. So they all get to be published authors by coming and doing that field trip. It's a very cool experience. Next up, we have our thematic workshops. Thematic workshops are weekend activities that we do to get our youth involved with other community members, sometimes other areas of the community to explore. And so these are usually 2 to 3 hour long sessions on the weekends, and they are divided by age group. So, you know, it might be a pre-K to kindergarten or first grade workshop, and then it'll go up from there. Our, you know, elementary, middle school, and we even do something with our high school students. So those are also great opportunities that the youth get to explore and enjoy in the RAWK Literacy Center. So that takes us to summer camps. Summer camps are actually being reconsidered this summer due to COVID. So we are conducting our summer camps virtually this summer. But typically, summer camps on site, and again, they're split up by age groups. We usually start with a leadership camp. So our high school age students come and learn how to run the camp, and then they're the people who run the camp for all of the subsequent grades. And so each level has some different curriculum, but it's a week-long camp program. And finally, we also have drop-in writings in the summer. This summer, we are not doing the drop-in writing program due to COVID, but typically this program involves students being able to come in between 9 and noon on Tuesday and Thursday mornings in the summer in July and August. And they can come as often as they want over the summer. And we work on creative writing projects while they're with us. Usually we'll do, one day we'll have a sort of a theme, and then the other day will be like a free write. And then everything that the students write during the summer will be published at the end of the summer. So we do some other stuff as well. We have a Books for Keep program where youth that work with us for our programs are able to take a book home of their choosing. And, you know, we do partner with community organizations often in doing other kinds of workshops and exploration with our youth. But these are the basic programs that RAWK does that you are able to get involved in as a volunteer. So I'm going to pop back over to our presentation, and we are going to talk now about some volunteer best practices. So one thing that I want to point out as you prepare to volunteer, if you have not already completed your volunteer application, the email that I sent to you that this video came with has a link to that volunteer application. We do need to have that on file before you are able to volunteer with us, because one of our best practices is we're making sure everything is safe for our youth. So we are going to run a background check once we have that application. Until that happens, we are not able to allow you to work with you. So make sure that you've gotten that taken care of. And if you've already done that, then this is the next step, this orientation. And then the third step in the process is volunteer training. Also in the email that I sent you, there was a link to register for our next volunteer training, which is on Tuesday, June 30th from 5 till 6 p.m. So if you're watching this video after that time, then just contact me and find out about when our next training will be conducted. We conduct one usually before each season. So this is our summer training, and then we'll conduct another training session prior to volunteering for the fall. So if you miss out on this one, you can still be a volunteer in the fall, and we will get you the information about when that training will occur. But if you're watching this before June 30th, then please use the link, register for the June 30th training, which will also be virtual from 5 till 6 p.m. Okay, so volunteer best practices. When you're working with youth, it is important that our work be fun and engaging for our youth. We want them to be able to get to know themselves and improve their writing and reading skills in that process. So we are trying to make sure that what we're doing doesn't feel like school. It's important that they have a space where learning is happening, but they're not being graded on anything. They're not being scored on anything. We'll still see the outcomes for sure, but we're not worried about some of the things that they have to worry about in school. Instead, we are trying to celebrate their voices, amplify their voices, and honor their words. That is always what we are aiming to do. So the best practices for RAWK spell out RAWK, actually, the acronym. And so the R is for Renew Creative Freedom. And what this talks about is just the idea that we were all born to create. And it feels like the more we go through life and, society and the pressures of society, the less creative we feel. So that's why we want to let our youth take the lead. We want to let them use their creativity to help them decide what they want to write about, how they want to write about it. It doesn't matter if they want to write a very, very, very long story or a very, very, very short story or poem. That's totally fine. We want to give them that creative freedom. That is a very important part of the work that we're doing. The A is for always be safe and flexible. Fun is the key when we're working with our youth. We want to give them a comfortable space where they can express themselves through writing. So while we do provide writing prompts, so say when we do our summer programming, the drop-in writing mornings I was telling you about, we always come to those at least once a week with a prompt, and we'll say, today we're writing about whatever. They are then free to write about that or to not write about that. So if you were volunteering that day and we said, okay, everyone today is going to write about, a fun summer experience. And then the youth that you were working with said, well, I don't want to write about a fun summer, experience. I was already writing a story about moving to a new town and I want to work on that. Great, they can work on that. Sometimes we try to use the yes and model and encourage them to think about, yes, write about a new town experience and Maybe the kid moves there in the summertime and has a fun experience that helps them to make new friends before the school year starts. So sometimes, we can encourage that kind of flexibility to allow them to think about how they can include those things. But it's also okay if they don't want to write about what we're writing about at all. The key is that they're able to express themselves if they feel comfortable in this space. So the W stands for write alongside each other. When we write alongside our youth, we're modeling the process of writing and showing respect for that process, showing respect for the goal ahead. We're also showing that this is fun work and this is important work. It's also very beneficial that we are connecting with youth in a way that exposes them to our vocabulary, our knowledge, our life experience. Those are things that we have that we can impart to them. So it's very important that we write alongside youth so that they can see the importance of this process being modeled to them. And so also they can, maybe pick up a few things from you as you write as well. And then finally, K is for kind feedback. This is my favorite one, and I think it's very important to always find something to gush about. So when you're working with a student, if they're working and maybe they only got one sentence written the whole time, you can find something in that one sentence to gush about. Maybe you point out a word choice that they made that really brought that sentence to life. Whatever the choice might be, celebrate something that they wrote down. Let them know that they're creative, that they're funny, that they were very honest or brave for telling a part of their story. That positive encouragement is going to keep them writing. It's going to make them feel like writers, and it's going to make them feel like successful writers inside and out. So as much as we can do that for our youth, we want to do that for our youth. So now that we've talked about some best practices, I am going to share a different screen so that we can talk about our volunteer guidebook. It's not as easy as it looks to figure out. I found it. Okay, sorry about that. I have never done a Zoom style orientation, so this is new for me and I appreciate your patience. So this is the RAWK Volunteer Guidebook. You also have a copy of this, as I mentioned, in the email that this video came in. If you'd like to follow along as I go through it, that would be great. Or you can just look at my screen and follow this way, but that guidebook is yours to keep. Please reference it, go through it, peruse it on your own time. All of the information that you need is within this guidebook. So it's very important information here. So our mission is here on the third page. Read and Write Kalamazoo exists to celebrate and amplify youth voices through the cultivation of reading and writing skills via joy, creativity, equity, and access. So you'll hear those last 4 words all of the time as you continue to work with RAWK because they are the cornerstones of the work that we are doing. So the purpose that you find underneath this is basically expanding on our mission and really talking about how that comes to life. You can read more about this on your own time, but I do want to point out that one of the most important things about our purpose is bringing a supportive community around our young people. And we're doing that in order to give them a safe space that is positive, where they can learn and where they can grow. When they have the investment of the adults around them, that's when young people begin to figure out who they are. That's when they begin to hear and know their own minds and voices, and that's how they're able to find agency in their own lives. So we want to be that touchstone for families to begin fostering a culture of literacy and giving a safe space to our young people. So please continue to read more about this on your own time. For now, the next sheet talks about our team. You can find all of our names and contact information there. As a volunteer, I will be your main point of contact. Again, my name is Kai Harris. My email address is listed down there, kai@readandwritekazoo.org. I will be your main point of contact for volunteer questions. If, sometimes if you're volunteering for a specific program, then I might connect you with another member of our team who you would need to work with, but usually I'll be your first point of contact. If you need to be in contact with someone else, I will usually connect you with that person. So our locations are also listed here for your convenience. So our storefront that I showed you the picture of earlier is located on West Edge, right at the corner across from Chenery Auditorium. Our phone number is listed there in case you ever need to reach us there. And below that is our location at Lincoln International Studies School. We don't have the location for Northeastern yet because that program is still getting figured out for the fall. But if you do volunteer at Lincoln, excuse me, the contact information, the address is listed here for that as well. Okay, next up is our statement of diversity and inclusion. This is extremely important to the work we do at RAWK. At RAWK, we celebrate diversity. We're also invested advocates of inclusion in the community at every level. So we are proud to say that the students we serve, our staff, our volunteers, our board of directors, all reflects the diverse community that we get to be a part of here in Kalamazoo. So as we're thinking about this, again, you can take some time and read through this on your own, but one thing I want to point out is that we are really focused on the ways in which words connect us, how reading others' writing and sharing our own writing allows us to know each other and to build community with each other, to encourage empathy, to celebrate diversity. These are the things that we are attempting to bring to the table with the work that we're doing at RAWK. And we also want to point out that we demonstrate anti-racism and promote inclusion across the board in our programming, in our staff procedures. We provide cultural awareness training, the experiences that we provide to our staff, our volunteers, and our board. All of that is intended to demonstrate anti-racism and promote inclusion. So you will learn more about that as well as we continue on. So I'd like to talk now about our literacy support goals. So these are our goals when we are working with students. So we're in the middle of a program, we're sitting there trying to do the work. This is what we're trying to do. We are aiming to transform students' relationships to reading and writing, building their confidence and pride. A lot of students that come to us will say something like, I'm a bad writer. And that sentence breaks my heart. Most of the time when someone says, I'm a bad writer, it's because maybe they're not great at grammar, which does not make you a bad writer. You know, take it from me, I am a writer and I am a PhD student in fiction writing at Western, and I teach the same thing to my college students there. You know, struggling with grammar does not make you a bad writer. There are editors for that. Writing is about telling our stories. It's about being authentic. It's about storytelling. There's so much else that goes into it. So we are working to build confidence and pride. We're looking to tell our students, you have a story and it matters. And it's important and you can tell it and we will listen to it because it's important. So we're changing that relationship to reading and writing, which a lot of times, unfortunately, has been negative. So we're trying to spin that around. Another thing that we aim to do is provide individualized attention and support so that students can make great leaps in learning. As much as possible, we try to operate with a 1-to-1 ratio. So one volunteer to one student or one RAWK staff member to one student, as much as possible. We can't always get there. At the very least, we try to do a 1-to-4 ratio with one volunteer with 4 students or one staff member with 4 students. But the lower we're able to get those ratios, the closer we're able to get to individual attention and support, the bigger those leaps in learning we're going to see. So that's always our goal. We also aim to partner with under-resourced schools and communities, providing our free services to those who would not otherwise have access. So when we have programming, and it might be open to anyone in Kalamazoo, but we give priority to students who attend certain schools or live in certain communities that are under-resourced. We're going to give them an opportunity to be a part of that programming first. Also, as we're choosing schools to partner with, that's how we're making those decisions as well. So, you know, there are specific schools that we are working with more closely than others, and it's because those schools need more help. They need more resources, and we want to make sure that they have that access. The last thing that we're aiming to do is cultivate wonder, inspiring imagination and creativity in all of our spaces and programs. So usually at this point of the volunteer orientation, I, you know, have people start looking around because I'm usually at RAWK. And right now I'm in my office at home. So I can't talk about how our space does this, but hopefully when you have the opportunity to go to RAWK, or maybe you've already been there, you'll see that that's something that we try and do in our literacy center. We're trying to cultivate wonder. We have little clouds that hang from the ceilings, and they are brainstorm clouds. So they're clouds that are shaped like brains, and they have like a little lightning strike out of them, and they're brainstorm clouds. So things like that. We're trying to just spark imagination and creativity in the spaces that we're in and through the programming that we run. So why volunteers are so important to RAWK? Well, RAWK does not work without our volunteers. So you probably remember a few pages up when I showed you our staff, and it's 4 people. So, you know, sometimes we work with interns and teaching artists, but we are a staff of 4. So volunteers are the way that we're able to serve over 1,500 Kalamazoo students since we began in 2012. So last year alone, I believe we had about 135 volunteers who worked with us over the course of the year. And most of those volunteers volunteered for multiple volunteer slots. So we need our volunteers. That is the way that this program runs. We are hoping that just as much as our volunteers are important to us, that the work we're doing at RAWK will be important to you as a volunteer. So we are hoping that this will also be a rich and rewarding experience for you, as your presence will be for our students. So thank you for you know, signing up to be a RAWK volunteer. It's the only way that this program runs. So okay, so now I'm going to get into some guidelines for volunteers. So the first one is about safety. So when we're at the RAWK Literacy Center, so the most important thing, first of all, is the safety of our volunteers and of our students. So if something were to happen while we were at the RAWK Literacy Center, the best way to get out is through the front door on West Edge Avenue. We would go out of that door and across the street by Chenery Auditorium. We would ask that you would stay and supervise students until you've been told that it is safe to leave. We will always have a count of how many people are in the space. So once we're safely across the street by Chenery Auditorium, we would take a head count to make sure everyone was accounted for. If you are volunteering on site at a school, the emergency procedures will be different and they will be posted clearly in that space. So just make sure that you're familiar once you become a volunteer in that space. Dress code. During working hours, we expect staff and volunteers at RAWK to dress in a professional manner consistent with their responsibilities. So you can definitely be casual. As you can see, I'm wearing my RAWK Use Your Words t-shirt. So it's totally fine to wear, you know, a t-shirt. Please do be mindful, though, of any t-shirts that have inappropriate sayings, decals, or logos on them, because the kids will definitely be paying attention and they will probably call you out as well if you're wearing something weird. So, you know, we just try to keep it casual, but also still professional and consistent with the work that we're doing. Inappropriate behavior. This refers to if you think a student is involved in some inappropriate behavior. And the guideline that we try to use is if their parent was standing there and they would be uncomfortable, then it's probably inappropriate. So, you know, this means they shouldn't probably be cursing or talking about inappropriate topics. However, keep in mind that sometimes those inappropriate topics might come up in the work that you're doing. So maybe in a conversation or in something that someone is writing. You know, a lot of our youth have been exposed to some topics that are heavier, that are adult topics, and they might want to write about those things, and that's totally fine. But if you ever are concerned and you don't know if something's okay, please speak with a RAWK staff member who's on site, and do so out of the earshot of other students. Cell phones. When working with a student, we ask that you don't take your cell phone out unless it's relevant to what you all are doing. You know, maybe they asked you to Google something for them or look something up to research for what they're writing. Otherwise, we ask that you not pull your phone out or, you know, any texting or social media while you're with the youth. We want to make sure that they know that that time is theirs and that it's going to be valued and respected. If you have an emergency, of course, you are able to take a phone call, but please do excuse yourself and take that call away from students. Email, this is important. Email is the primary way that I'm going to be communicating with you about volunteer opportunities or anything to do with being a RAWK volunteer. We don't have any big basically automated system. It's just me sending emails. So basically what'll happen once you sign up, once you tell me that you're, so basically what'll happen from here, the process is a little bit different because of COVID. So what is going to happen is if you are interested in volunteering for something, you would contact me via email and say, you know, hey, during the orientation video, you talked about field trips. The next time you have a field trip, let me know because I'm interested. I then have a database where I keep information about volunteers. So I will include your name under the list for field trips at that point. Then when we schedule a field trip, I will send you an email that will say, hey, you told me before that you were interested in field trips. We have one coming up on such and such date at such and such time. Do you want to volunteer? So that's basically how it works. You'll also receive emails from me that are larger, like an email blast. That'll be like a newsletter usually. I typically do those quarterly, although sometimes you might receive another one if something specific is going on. Like, for example, we have a program coming up and we are short on volunteers. Then I might send out an email blast that says, hey, if any volunteer is available, we need help. So in that case, you might get an email about volunteering for something that you haven't specifically expressed interest in, but those are just kind of one-off scenarios when we really need help. But the biggest takeaway from this should be that email is the main way that I will be communicating with you about volunteering with RAWK. So make sure that I have the email address on file that is going to be the best way to reach you. If you have any concerns with that, just let me know. Okay, child welfare concerns. If for some reason you think that there is a red flag for safety and well-being, either you think the student might be being harmed, harming themselves, or maybe harming others, please do bring that information to a RAWK staff member immediately, and we'll take it from there. Social media use. So when we work with our youth, we do get permission from their parents or guardians that we can post about them. However, as a volunteer, you are not allowed to do the same. So you're not allowed to take or post pictures of students for any reason while you're volunteering. You also are not able to contact any student on social media via any platform. However, we do love to highlight and promote student work. So if we share something, you are definitely encouraged to then share it yourself. So you can follow our social media. We might share a photo of the youth that you're working with, and then at that point you are free to share. And then also, if we ever want to feature you, you will also be signing a waiver that we are able to use your photo as well. Food. We ask that you don't bring food when you're volunteering. Sometimes, we know that, our volunteers might be busy and, maybe coming to volunteer right from something else and might need to eat on the go. If you do have to bring a small snack, we ask that you do not eat it in front of the students. Many of our students face food insecurity. So to be respectful of them, we do not want any of our staff or volunteers eating in front of them. Also, all RAWK spaces are peanut-free spaces. So if you do need to bring a snack, we ask that it does not contain peanuts or tree nuts. Grounds for immediate dismissal, we have not had to, this is not something that comes up with our volunteers, and I'm very thankful for that. But to be clear on things that are not going to be allowed. You should not have contact outside of RAWK programming with students, meaning in person, via email, or via phone. This even includes taking a student's contact information or giving them your contact information. Now, if you see a student at the programming and you already know them, then that's different. Or if you run into a student in the community, you can definitely say hello, but this just refers to intentionally contacting a student outside of the program. Do not walk the students anywhere at any time unless authorized by RAWK staff. Sometimes as a part of our programming, we will go for walks, but that will always be authorized by a RAWK staff and usually with a RAWK staff member. Other than that, we shouldn't be walking the students anywhere. This also goes for driving. No RAWK volunteers or staff are ever permitted to drive a youth anywhere at any time. And then finally, photos. We've already touched on this. Do not take any photos of students with your device at any time or post photos of students on your social media accounts. However, if we do post our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram accounts, you are then able to share those. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a bit about our creative writing and literacy approach. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth on these because these approaches are going to be talked about more in depth during the volunteer training session, which, as I mentioned before, our next volunteer training session is on Tuesday, June 30th from 5 till 6 p.m. And you can register for that by clicking the link in the email that I sent. So these topics will be gone over then more in depth. So I will just run through them quickly. But these are the approaches that we use in the work that we're doing at RAWK. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what each approach means and kind of like what it means for the work that we're doing. So the first one is student-centered learning. This refers to programs, experiences, approaches, strategies, any of those things that are intended to address the distinct learning needs, interests, aspirations, and cultural backgrounds of individual students and groups of students. So this means we're centering our approach on the individual student. We're not just creating a blanket approach and saying the same thing will work for everybody. We are taking into account the needs, interests, backgrounds of individual students and groups, and then trying to cater our approach to fit that. Project-based learning is a teaching method where students get knowledge and skills by working on a project. So they're working for an extended period of time, they are investigating, and they're trying to respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. So a lot of people have heard of project-based learning. It is used in schools and other settings. So that's something that we're doing as well. An example of this is our field trip, where they are working together on writing a book. Social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So social emotional learning is very important because it goes alongside the academic learning that a lot of times we're focused on. Social emotional learning is just as important as that. It is considering the holistic nature of a student and our relationships with one another. And it's asking us to empathy, it's asking us to manage emotions, to understand emotions so that we're able to manage emotions and thereby make good decisions. So that's social emotional learning. A growth mindset is just the belief that intelligence can be developed. So this means that a student with a growth mindset is going to know that they can get smarter by working harder, by using the right strategies, by getting help from other people when they need to. This is the opposite of a fixed mindset, which says that intelligence is a fixed trait and you either are born with it or you're not. We encourage our students to have a growth mindset so that they know that if they work hard, use the right strategies, get help when they need to, then they are able to solve their problem or do whatever it is that they're trying to do. Holistic multicultural education. This approach views each student as a physical, psychosocial, cognitive, ethical, and spiritual being inseparable from their cultural identities. By acknowledging, sharing, and negotiating the many different cultural perspectives of our students, we gain a deeper understanding of how our students experience the world and what they need to learn and grow. So again, this is a holistic approach. It's taking into account all the aspects of a student's identity and realizing that we need to understand all of those things so that we can get a sense of how that student experiences the world. And then by knowing that, we can help them, we can know what will help them as they continue to learn and grow. Cultural humility talks about each of us doing some self-reflection on how our own backgrounds and expectations might be impacting a situation. Also, openness to others determining the relevance of their own identities to any given situation, and then committing to redress the effects of power imbalances. So this is all about self-reflection, thinking about how your own background or your own expectations walking in the door might impact a situation, and then being committed to changing up something that you see as a result of that. Anti-bias and anti-racism practices is, again, we've talked about this before, that's a core of the work that we're doing at RAWK. This practice promotes learning about each other's differences and invites children to be proud of themselves, proud of their families, and is teaching them to respect and honor difference, to recognize bias, and to speak up for what's right. So this education not only addresses race and ethnicity, but it also includes gender, language, religious diversity, sexual orientation, physical and mental abilities, and economic class. This education is all about taking an active problem-solving approach that needs to be integrated into all aspects of the environment. So the RAWK environment, this type of education and approach is a part of every single thing that we do. And this, by doing that, we're promoting an understanding of social problems, and we're inviting students to come up with their own strategies for improving social conditions. It's a huge part of the work that we're doing, and you'll learn a lot more about this in the volunteer training. Finally, we use a poverty and trauma informed learning approach. This approach considers that a student might have experienced poverty and trauma, and they might be dealing with some residual effects from those traumatic experiences. So this is about thinking about what we can do to help students heal from those traumatic experiences. So the approaches that we talked about previously are designed to provide safe environments for learning, where students can have a sense of control, share their interests in who they are, feel comfortable making mistakes, and build positive, enriching relationships with calm and caring adults. All of those things are going to be beneficial to our youth. While not all students might not have lived in poverty or experienced trauma, we believe that all of our youth will benefit from this approach to learning. So we are indiscriminate in our practice of providing it. There is going to be more information about this approach as well in the volunteer training. Okay, so this page lists our programs and volunteer opportunities. This is going to be a bit different than what we have going on this summer and possibly this fall due to COVID. But typically, we have the RAWK Readers Room at Lincoln International Studies School. And as I mentioned, we are also beginning this at Northeastern Elementary School. After school tutoring, summer writing camps, creative writing workshops, our storytelling and bookmaking workshops, field trips, our summer drop-in writing mornings, shopkeeping, that's one that I haven't brought up yet. I mentioned the storefront earlier, and one thing I forgot to mention is that volunteers work in our storefront. So that's an opportunity to still work as a RAWK volunteer, but it's not working with our programming or working directly with students. But you can come and volunteer, usually for a 3-hour shift in the storefront. Currently, our storefront is closed due to COVID, but once it opens back up, we'd love to have volunteers in that space. It gives you an opportunity to come and talk to people about RAWK. When they come in the door, you're telling them about RAWK and the work that we're doing and helping them out with making some purchases. So if you're interested in that, email me and let me know. There is a training session prior to being able to work in the storefront. Some other things listed here are just administrative. We do have admin tasks that people can volunteer and help us with if their schedule doesn't work for other volunteer opportunities. Also, if you have any special skills, something that you think that you could bring to the table, also email me that and let me know. And I'd love to hear about how you'd like to get involved. We also have a board of directors that people can get involved with as well. So finally, we've already gone over the volunteer best practices on the other PowerPoint. So I'm going to take us to the last page, which is volunteer expectations. The first expectation is the journey of being a RAWK volunteer. We want you to expect to be encouraged, inspired, frustrated, and educated. Working with students in general is complex and it's rewarding. So as an organization, we are continually addressing equity and access through the lens of literacy in our community, and we really hope that you're going to want to do the same to us. We try to always display respect and understanding, even in the most challenging situations, and that's what we're looking for from our volunteers. We're looking for volunteers who are ready to engage and do this work. It can be challenging at times, but it is very important and rewarding. And I haven't met a volunteer yet who didn't feel at the end of their experience that they got something from it, that most volunteers come to me and are surprised at how much they feel like they've learned and grown by working with the youth. So I expect all of those things in the journey of being a RAWK volunteer. Also, commitment. We are looking for you to commit to specific volunteer opportunities, and then we're going to be counting on your attendance and follow through in order to ensure a successful program from there. So when you say, I can be at this event, then as a volunteer, then we are scheduling students based on how many volunteers we're going to have, because we're trying to always achieve those low ratios. So if you don't show up, it's going to have an impact on the program. This also includes showing up on time and ready to help. So we're asking for you to be a strong example for our students. Of course, emergencies happen. If that happens, just contact me and give me some notice so that I'm able to try and still make sure that the programming can be successful. So that is our volunteer guidebook. Excuse me, I'm going to return to our presentation for just one or two last slides. So the last really important thing that I wanted to talk to you about is signing up to be a RAWK volunteer. So I just told you everything about RAWK, our best practices, what it looks like to volunteer, what kind of programs we have, what all the rules and all that stuff. And one thing we haven't gotten to yet is what can you actually volunteer for? So right now in this summer, due to COVID, as I've mentioned, our programming looks completely different. We are doing virtual summer camps, and those will be run by RAWK staff and interns. But we do need volunteers to help deliver camp packages to our youth. So we're making special packages for each camper, and they're going to receive those packages in the week prior to their camp starting. So that is an opportunity that we have this summer. We are also looking to start a one-on-one youth mentoring program this summer, which would be virtual one-on-one mentoring between a RAWK volunteer or staff member and a RAWK youth. So if you're interested in either of those opportunities this summer, in the email that I sent you, there was a link that says sign up here for summer volunteering. You can click that link and fill out a Google form letting me know which opportunity you're interested in. Once you've done that, I will get in touch with you with more information. Below that, here you'll see fall 2020 opportunities. Like I said, these are going to be potentially shifting based on what schools do, what KPS does in the fall, but we're expecting to somehow do our RAWK Readers Room, after school tutoring, thematic workshops, and field trips. They might look a little different, but we are planning to still have programming this fall. If you're interested in any of these opportunities, you can send me an email now to just let me know what you're interested in, or I will be sending out a mass email to all of our volunteers, and you all are added to that list at this point just by having signed up for this orientation. You'll receive an email prior to the fall saying, here's everything we have going on this fall, and it'll show you then how you can sign up if you're interested in any of those. So you can email me now if you already know, I'm interested in this, tell me about it, and I'll put you down, or you can wait until closer to the fall and sign up that way. Again, if you have not completed the volunteer application, that is the first step for any RAWK volunteering. So please, if you have not done that, click the link in the email and complete the volunteer application after watching this video. And I believe that is all. So again, to reiterate, complete the volunteer application if you haven't done so already. By watching this video, you have already taken a step towards being a RAWK volunteer. The next step is the email is going to ask you to reflect on 3 quick questions, just asking you just to make sure that everything has come across from this orientation video. So please take some time and respond to those questions by email. And if you're able to and you need to do the RAWK training, the volunteer training, use the link to sign up for that as well. I also included a link to our website there in case you just want to peruse the website and get some more information about RAWK and the work that we do. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. Hopefully you are still very excited about being a RAWK volunteer. I thank you for attending. I thank you for your patience as I navigate this virtual volunteer orientation. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. I am looking forward to working with you soon as a RAWK volunteer. I can't wait to be back, working together. And that might not look like working in person. We might be working virtually, but we will be figuring out ways to engage with our youth. And I'm excited to do that work with you. So thank you again for attending, and we'll talk soon.